Okay, in this lesson, you're going to build a full score, but in this particular mini lesson, we're going to start with just one instrument at a time. So this is the one that you're going to build for now, and we're going to continue to build on that to create a full score with many, many instruments, which you will eventually transfer and export over to Soundtrap. Okay? All right, so we're going to start with the electric guitar, the melody portion. This is the melody of this particular song. This is a song, hopefully, that you all are familiar with. All right, don't worry about these letters up here. These are for your chord progressions, which we will get to later on in the steps. Of course, we're going to be working on your treble staff for 4-time signature, which we have not gone over that yet. Don't worry about that, okay? All right, now you're going to be learning about the different types of notes as well as we go along. Okay, let's keep it simple. So the first thing that you're going to do is you want to make sure your score is, set up. You're going to go in, you're going to change, and you're going to put your name here. So go in and put your name here, then you're going to save it. All right, so it'll say Lean on Me dash, and it'll have your name. Now, as you start to build your score, Flat will continue to add bars as you go, or measures as you go. You can leave the tempo right now at 80, which is a good tempo for this song. All right, remember this is your highlight. In order to move the highlight along, you can click with your mouse if you're using a mouse. If you're using a keyboard on your laptop, you can use your arrow keys on your keyboard laptop to move back and forth. And of course, if you're on a touch screen, you just touch it. Okay, you want to make sure that you put your keyboard on. That's really important. Let me expand it so you can see. So just a review, you should already know how to do this to go up here to display or hide your keyboard. So we're going to click it and we're going to put it on. So you always want to have that on so that it can be very simple and easy for you to input your notes into your score. All right, so we're starting out in this particular exercise with quarter rests. Okay, so you have 4 rests here. Rests are symbols that indicate silence. So if I play this, you're going to hear a count off, and it's going to play through the score, but you're not going to hear anything because that's silence. Silence is very important in music because without silence, you can't make a distinction between your sounds and your notes. So silence is used strategically just like notes are used. So these are called quarter notes. Now, we need to change them. And the way you do that is in your notes menu. So up here is your menu. You're going to be doing most of your work from here in your note tab. So make sure note is highlighted, and you'll know it's highlighted by the little gray line that's underneath it. It's kind of light, but hopefully you'll see it. And then you should see actual notes or symbols. Okay, so these are notes of sound. So when you input these notes into your score, you will hear something. Okay, and of course you're going to be using these to change the values from the rests to sounds, and then you will determine what type of sound or what type of key or note you're going to put in there. We're going to be starting on C4 for this one. So remember, you have arrows on both sides of your keyboard. Let's move down so that we can bring up our C4. C4 in flat is middle C. Remember from the previous exercise, I told you middle C was very important. So here's your middle C. All right, so let's get started. So how do we change this symbol here into this symbol here? Okay, so this is the first bar. This is the first bar. So this bar here minus this, don't worry about that. All of this is going to look, or rather this is going to look like that. So let's look at what the notes look like. All right, so this, now of course we have put the letters are in there, which is important, which will help you to know what to put on your score, which we'll get into that later. So outside of the letters, we're not talking about the letters, we're talking about just the note itself. So this note has a head that is not darkened in. as opposed to this note, which has a head that's darkened in. All right, so if the letter wasn't there, it would just be a black dot. If this letter wasn't here, you would just see white here, okay? All right, so now we want this to be here. Really simple. Where do you see this looking note? Here, okay? So this is it. This is your half note. So you're just going to click on that, which changes it to a half rest. Don't worry about that. It changes it to this equivalent, but of silence. But in order for it to be sound, we're going to have to put the sound in there. So we want a C4. So remember, make sure your highlight is there, and let's click on the C4. And there you have it. So now it changes this into a half note C. All right, in this case, a C4. Now, it automatically took these out and changed it to another half rest. But we don't need the half rest. We need these notes. Do you see these notes over here? No, you don't, because you're looking for the beam that goes straight across. Well, this is the same note. This is a flag, okay, or a little hook. And when we put that note here and combine it with another note, it will automatically put a beam in. By itself, it's going to look like this, an eighth note with a hook or a flag. But when you have more than one eighth note, 2 or more, the program will start to beam them. All right, so we're going to use another C, but not this note. We're going to use another C, but we're using an eighth note, which is this note. So just click on that eighth note. It changes into an eighth rest, which is a same equivalent of this, but it's a symbol of silence. Now we need to put some sound in there. So we need a C4. Let's click on the C4 again. So now it put the symbol in there. So it moved this symbol, the note of sound, and change the note of silence that was there into a note of sound. So now you have an eighth note with sound. Now I'm going to add another one. The next note that you need to add is the D. Same eighth note. All of these are eighth notes, okay? The notes with the little hook. So it's already an eighth rest, so we're going to go in and we're going to put in the D4. Why? Because this D is right above this C. It's up. It's the next note up. This is a line note. This is a space note, and it's going up from the C to the D. So we're going to click on the D, and there you have it. So notice that it automatically changes it and combines these 2 little hooks and makes it into a beam. All right, just like how you have here. All right, so when we go to the next one, which is an E, which is right above the D, so we want a E that is above the D, which is in this case an E4, and then the next note, which is an F. Okay, so it combined the C and the D with a beam, it combined the E and the F with a beam, but it didn't combine them both, and that's okay. We can do that later. That's not important now. But you do have 4 eighth notes that are connected with beams. So what does that sound like? Let's move our playhead back here. How do you do that? You can use the keyboard again if you need to do that, or you can just click on it. All right, and there you have it. Okay, just make sure that you click directly on it. If you click anywhere near it, you're going to get a double note. Okay, so be very careful with how you use your mouse if you're doing it that way. Undo, remember, always use your undo key. You can also use the keyboard commands. If you're using a regular PC, it would be Control Z. But if you're using a Mac, then it's Command Z if you're using the keyboard. I'm just going to click undo, and it takes that little note out that I don't need. And let's continue. So now I'm going to play it. So I'm going to press play. It gives me a count off. Okay, it didn't show the playhead. I'm going to do that again. So what I want you to pay attention to is that I stopped it. What I want you to pay attention to is that this half note is longer in sound than these. These are shorter in sound. They're shorter and they're played quicker. This is longer. It's held down so that you hear this a little bit longer than you hear this. All right, let's try it again, and maybe you can see the playhead. There you go. Watch the playhead. Okay, so did you see how long it held that C? That's what a half note is. It's held for a longer period of time than an eighth note. All right, let's go on to the second bar. Our first bar is complete. First bar is complete. Now let's move on to the second bar. So in the second bar, this is a half rest, okay? So I need to tell you that because you're not going to see it listed up here, but this is a half rest. Now, if I click on a rest, okay, it's not going to show you the rest symbols up here, unfortunately. Okay, it's only going to show you the notes for now. So what you need to know that half rest is the equivalent of this half note. So if I click over here, I'm going to, and you need to do the same thing, just click on the half note, and it changes this into a half rest. Okay. If it seems confusing, don't worry about it. Just duplicate exactly what I did. Use this symbol here, and it will change those two symbols there. But just make sure that your bubble, your playhead, your highlight is on the first note before you do that. All right, so I don't need to do anything more with this, okay, because that's what is indicated in my second bar in this. It needs a half rest. So now I need to move over, and I'm going to put 4 more eighth notes in again, this time starting on my F. And in this case, it's the same F as this, same F. So therefore, it's going to be the F4, and then on down back to the C4, okay? So let's go back over there. Let's move our playhead over here. And then I'm going to put in my F4, and I'm going to go down, okay? What happened? I got different notes here. Did they connect? Do they have hooks or beams? No, because it's the wrong note. These are quarter notes. A darkened in head with a straight stem, no hook or flag. Darkened in, straight stem, no hook, no flag. This is the one I want, the same one that I had here. So let's correct that, and let's put in the correct notes. I'm going to do Command Z to undo my notes, okay? And I'm going to change this quarter rest into an eighth rest. So it changes, and it has that little hook there. So now I can go in and put my F4. Now it changes it into an eighth note. It goes from a symbol of silence to a note of sound. And now I'm going to continue on with my F to the E, the D, and to the C. So my highlight is already here on the second eighth note. So I go down to my E4, D, C. Okay. So notice how it automatically creates the next bar as I continue. So now my first bar is complete and my second bar is complete. Okay. Now you're going to go in and continue on the same. This is a quarter note, which is what you find right here. This is a quarter note. So when you get up to here, you're going to put in a quarter note. What about here? When you get here, you're going to put in a quarter note and add 1 dot. How do you do that? Let's just try it. So let's just say, all right, this is the first bar, second bar, third bar, fourth bar. There are 10 bars total in this, okay? So this is the fourth bar. So let's say I'm up to the fourth bar and I want to put my E in. All right, so I would put an E in, but I would make sure that I make it a quarter note. Now you can do it the opposite way as well. You can put your E in, and if you notice that it doesn't look like it's supposed to look, you can go back over to it and change it to the note that it's supposed to look. See, no hook, just a straight line. See, straight line, darkened in, straight line, darkened in, but this one has a dot. So this E would be this E. Now how do I add the dot? Real simple, right here. There's your dots. So now I would just click on, oh, when you open it, it's going to give you a choice whether you want 1 dot or 2. In this case, we only want 1 dot. Click on the 1 dot, and there you have it. It adds your dot. It's just that simple. And then you go on to the next note, right? Add your D. Here's a D. And this one has the hook. So you're okay with that. Now you move on to the next note, which would be here. And that would be a quarter note D. That would be this D. So we can change it. Okay, remember when you change it, until you put the sound in, it's just going to put the symbol of silence there. So when we put the sound, okay, it changes it to look exactly like this note of sound. Okay. All right, so I skipped over this. Okay, make sure you don't do what I did. I skipped over this measure to show you what to do with the quarter notes and so forth. All right. So go ahead and get started on that. I think I've given you everything that you need to complete these first 10 measures. Okay. Don't worry about whether the stems are going down, how they're reversed upside down. Don't worry about that. What I want you to focus on is where the notes are placed. What line, what space. So those are the things you have to pay attention to. This is in middle C. This is placed underneath the staff. This is placed on the first line of the staff. This is placed on the first space of the staff. Okay. So you had a lesson on this already as far as your line notes, your space notes on your staff. Okay. So you should be able to transfer that learning and that skill onto this particular lesson. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to ask. In the meantime, go ahead and complete your first score exercise, your first 10 bars, using this pre-existing electric guitar that has already been loaded up for you. All right. And when you're finished, then you'll be ready for the next step.